bounce to the ounce. Put it in the air, make it count. Yeah, just make it count. Bounce to the ounce. Put it in the air, make it count. Yeah, just make it count. Bounce to the ounce. Put it in the air, make it count. Just make it count. Yeah, bounce to the ounce. Put it in the air, make it count. Just make it count. Yeah, I don't text, I don't flex, I keep it grounded. My hope test what goes next. We work it out like Bo Flex, a swole chest. You hear the sound, her glows next. I flows best, you slow it down. She lift weight, a straight face, don't make a sound. A full plate, don't hesitate, she'll put you down. I'm at the gate, she said wait, I'm coming down. We hit skate, a move mate, she coming now. Scholar, baby, hear me, Roger, see me, lately, pushing harder, ride it, baby, take it, father, ride it, baby, take it, father, push up like Daddy Dame got the hook up. You shook up, she felt the thing and made it look up. I'm booked up, you playing games for the shook up. She see her dance moves, look at where they took her. I got the flow to make her wanna change her name though. You got the dough, but she really wants you to change though. Deep and slow, take your time, girl, it's your game though. Hoes act differently in the presence of Dame though. I keep a mood in the pocket for the game though. I let it change, now you watch it for the fame though. I watch her move, work it, mommy, do your thing though. Another blessing shooting down from the range though. Bounce, baby, work it, ride, bounce, baby, twerk, try. She see me fluent from the sky. Stay with me, this might be the night that I die. The flow is never stopping, little homie. Don't you try my body in the way so I know we can't see eye to eye. She said, Dame, I see how you got me mesmerized. You free your lame, integrity never jeopardized. Bounce to the ounce. Put it in the air, make it count. Yeah, just make it count. Bounce to the ounce. Put it in the air, make it count. Put it in the air, just make it count. Bounce to the ounce. Put it in the air, make it count. Make it count. Just make it count. Yeah. Bounce to the ounce. Put it in the air, make it count. Yeah. Just make it count, girl. Make it count. Just work it out. Yeah. Two-step. Who's next? Two-step. Who's next? Yeah. What's this here? Lip Packington. You know, that pack. Yeah, of course, she get you lit. Yeah, you dig it. Word, about to put it in now. Go ahead. Medicinal, life changing. Oh, alright. Who this by?
You are now tuned in to DameSmiff.
You ready? Spot. Go. So, what's going on, y'all? Welcome to the next episode of Musician Talks with DameSmiff. And we are going to have a continued conversation of this week's theme of the double-edged sword. How things are basically going to be either good or bad, depending on how you utilize your decisions. So today we're going to be talking about more of the adult entertainment side of things, because it's a hot button topic. But also at the same time, I think it's one of those kinds of forms of entertainment that kind of bleeds into a lot of different versions of entertainment that we see. And so if you're interested in conversations like this, make sure you hit the like button. That way we can make sure people who need to hear this information knows that it's good information. And then also hit the subscribe button so you can catch my latest videos and live streams like this on time, right? You want to get all the content. Also want to know too, before we go into this, I've been thinking about chopping up some of the like longer content videos, like 10, 15, 20 minutes, however long I talk about different topics. Let me know if you'd be interested in that. It'd be a more digestible way to get some of the things we cover here on these live streams. But I can also do that alongside standalone, pre-recorded video. But either way, I can do either one to make it, a little bit more digestible for you guys. Because what we plan on doing here is these weekly themes are going to be kind of like on and off, but essentially we'll be covering a multitude of topics in one video. And sometimes for some people, it's a lot better to just sit down and watch like one topic and onto whatever YouTube chicken. I don't know what. So let me know if that's cool for you guys. I'm gonna test some stuff if I don't get an answer, and then we'll just see whatever works. But all in all, what we're talking about is essentially today how musicians and entertainers in general navigate, I guess you can say, the stigmas, the expectations, the demands, and the systems of adult entertainment. And we also need to be able to identify adult entertainment, that of which I think is a lot harder to do today. So when we're considering that, we have to also know, just like when we were talking about Finesse Two Times and his contract, we also need to know how to identify problems, how to know how to learn and be intentional with our decisions, right? Because a lot of people will get into music thinking like, oh, I can just play an instrument and people will like me for the instrument I play. And that's not the case, right? So we're going to look at things like bypassing industry gatekeepers for instant equity, right? And we've seen that with the people who were like, oh, I'm turning 18, so all you creepy pervs, come give me your money, right? And it kind of solidifies them as whatever that becomes of them, right? Instead of having the longevity of designing and architecting and crafting a. Then we're going to look at retaining absolute self-ownership of bodily intellectual property, establishing self-funded direct-to-consumer cash systems, right? So that's the benefit of like getting into usually entertainment like OnlyFans or Patreon and stuff like that, where you can do these kinds of things, right? And then we'll look at the dark side as well, like the high risks of algorithmic shadow banning across networks. Like for example, this video might be shadow banned just because of the premise, context, and keywords that are involved in the metadata. But if you don't know that, like I'm aware of that, right? But if you don't know that, then you may be putting yourself in a situation where you have a whole bunch of time and content, like we've seen with the AI artists, where you're doing hundreds of songs or whatever, and you're being shadow banned for when you try to do, I guess, what you would call mainstream content. So how do you navigate that as a musician or as an artist in general? And then we'll also look at the severe creative commodification resulting in narrow niches, right? So we talk about a lot here how musicians need to kind of think outside of playing notes and singing to figure out how to get income stream. Well, one of the things we started to commodify was our lifestyles. I don't do that because that's just not smart in my opinion. But what people have started to do is they just commodify the way they live, right? You ever notice how like your dad or maybe your uncle or some of the men in your community, they kind of walk and talk and dress a certain way, right? And do you ever notice how like the variety of the men that do that usually is shaped by their tastes of entertainment, right? So if you're a guy that's into like NASCAR racing and stuff like that, you're more than likely going to drink beer. You're more than likely going to, be into the products around these kinds of things and the lifestyles, right? Same goes for music. Like people who grew up listening to gangster rap, 9 times out of 10, you wore a hoodie, at least once. People who grew up listening to pop music, you likely have like, I don't know what pop music people do. Maybe you like make TikToks. You have like a popular TikTok. So these are things that kind of shape niches, basically demographics of people, groups of people that we can target. But if we keep doing that over and over and over again, you get into a point to where you can only target people exactly like what you're looking for. So let's say with this, I use the word musicians, right? And you can think of a lot of different versions, types, and genres of musicians. But if I were to say black musician, suddenly I've excluded a whole bunch of people, right? And so if I were to commodify the word black, then that changes a lot of the conversations we're having. That changes a lot of who this information is technically valuable to. And that can be a hindrance if I wanted to, be successful. The next thing we'll see on the dark side of things is that the legacy industry stigma will be limiting brand expansion and sponsorships. So, for example, when we think of the top news networks or top entertainment companies that give us our TV shows and stuff like that, could you imagine them putting on like an ex-criminal, something like a very, very, very stigmatized type of person? I mean, in general, we all kind of value and respect different things, but if we all generally thought this one person we don't like, right, for whatever reason, you can see how that could limit your opportunities to get, collaborative works or sponsorships and representation, right? So, as we explore these things, we'll be exploring this today through adult entertainment or like sensual branding, because sensual branding is like the soft, sugar-free version of what I would call adult entertainment, right? And to relate it to musicians, what sensual branding would look like is when Chris Brown takes his shirt off and starts gyrating, when Usher walks into the crowd and starts to like swoon and sing directly one on one with the ladies, right? It's sensual and it's part of the brand, right? Now, the thing that confuses or at least causes issue for people is the dark side of having a sensual brand, right? So I'll look at it from a gendered perspective for a moment. As a guy, most men in general, if you have like the proclivities to be this kind of person, would look at a Chris Brown or an Usher show and then kind of imagine themselves in the similar position of an Usher or Chris Brown, right? That's the fantasy, right? You can swoon a woman with your moves, you can sing really well, you can dance really well, and you look really cool, right? That's what's most guys' fantasy of it, right? For women, it would be to experience that from the girl who's being swooned opportunity, right? And be like, oh man, this really, really hot guy just suddenly just walked into my life and is like solving things and making things better, right? That's really nice, right? So both of those fantasies exist. That's the bright side. The dark side is that for the guy, a lot of the women that are experiencing this aren't attached to you, right? So it's a very intimate, like we said, sensual type of performance. But because there is a transactional relationship here, it can cause a bit of like psychological things that are going on with you. Like you may actually believe these people like you. And this may also be something that you can't differentiate between reality, right? So for the guy, that can be detrimental because you can find yourself in situations where you are in a, I guess you could say, a relationship with someone who you believed thought of you one way and they really thought of you another way. You can be in a relationship with someone who's actually not really supposed to be in a relationship with you, but they're doing it because of, let's say, the clout of who you are or the opportunity you provide them. And then on top of that, I guess to give you one more, would be that for many, many dudes, it would be having to wield that power with respect to culture, right? So you'll see situations where a lot of rappers and stuff like that, they'll try to do this. Like, here's the gangster rapper version of this. Talking about R&B, the gangster rapper version of sensual branding is "I took your girl," right? Because the concept here is that he's so mean, rough, tough, or so rich and raps so cool or whatever that women just can't keep their hands off of him, even yours, even you, right? And so when they try to do this, the dark side of it is that culturally, just think culturally, most people would not accept this behavior, right? So if you were to go back in time from the 1400s, 1500s, 16, I don't care what century you choose, the idea of some man sexualizing women at random, whether the women are single or not, has always been frowned upon, right? And the reason it's frowned upon is because it's a perverted, almost like predatory behavior because the women are not really aware of your lust for them, right? It's not a seductive thing. Seduction goes both ways, right? Seduction is I'm attracted to you, you're attracted to me, and then we start, interacting with one another. So when it's not that, and you're just some dude who's just gyrating, to the community for no reason, it's been frowned upon for a long time, right? Now, why you want to frown upon it is whatever you want to make up, because, like I said, men fantasize about being this person, right? Women fantasize about being with this person, but we're just explaining the dark sides of being this person, right? And so, with that, you'll have situations where you'll be shamed for this behavior from sometimes the very fans you have, but also it'll come from the people who are around the fan. So let's say like if you're not a female R&B artist, but you're if you're not a male R&B artist, but you're a female R&B artist, a lot of times your sensuality will be used as a way to identify your characteristics, which may not be true, but it is easier to do than to sit here and find out the truth, right? And so that is the dark side of sensual branding when, for both men and women as the person who's committing the branding. Now I want to look at it from the other side of it as a fan. So as a female fan of a male R&B singer or a male artist that's, using sensual branding, the bright side is, right, you get a very sensual, intimate, sexual, erotic experience, whatever it is you desire, right? Because a lot of girls are freaked out. The dark side of it is similar to the singer side. It's transactional, right? So the psychological effects of experiencing this constantly or desiring this constantly with someone who you're not actually in a relationship with can have effects, right? And so you'll see situations where back in the day, I think it was like the 60s and 70s and stuff like that, you started to see people like screaming for no reason in concerts, like just for no reason. They would just just scream, right? And what that does is it excites the brain. Like that's a physiological thing. That has nothing to do with wow, they are a really great singer, right? That's not why they're screaming. So the excitement heightens everything, hormones, blood, and all that stuff, right? It makes your brain think certain things in this moment and experience, right? So when you do that, when it comes to entertainment that you paid money for with someone that you don't have a relationship with, then the dark side of it is that your expectations of reality start to shift. Just like the dude, right? The male singer. So now you start to think these are the triggers of, let's say, attraction. These are the triggers of love. You start to use the lyrics in the songs as representation of your life experiences, whereas your life experiences may never ever align with the lyrics in these songs, right? That's the dark side on one end. The next end would be how these psychological responses affect you going into your dollar, right? So as a fan, again, this is from the fan's perspective. As a fan, you are being hit over the head pretty much everywhere when it comes to the cost of being a fan, right? Yes, you could pay your little 1099, your utility bill to get streaming, but if you're the type of girl that wants to go see the show, you want to go be the girl on stage and get the pictures with Chris Brown and stuff like that, it's going to cost you more, right? So in combination with the psychological stuff that happens as a fan, you also have to think about how much it's going to cost you to be this fan. It's a really really deep thing, because this is why you'll see a lot of people in business, especially in capitalism, they'll use this term sex sells, because it's similar to how a drug will just sell itself. Like you don't need to market cocaine. There's going to be cocaine users looking for it, right? So because of these realities that both men and women fantasize about being in these positions, but then the dark side of it is that there's a lot of things that are outside of your control that are affecting you. There are things that we need to pay attention to as artists and as well as fans in order to get a healthy, I guess you can say, outcome from these experiences, right? So I could sit up here and just say, sex is bad, don't do that, stop masturbating, and all that stuff, right? But in reality, you either really, really, really are the type of person that wants to do this and you're really going to do it, or like most people, you think in your head, you really believe in your head that only the good things will occur from your decisions of participating in this, okay? And so Even as I say that, some of you will think, no, no, I agree. I think I understand the dark sides. Well, the reality is that even if you understand the dark sides, the ability to deal with it is rare. Okay. So like you'll think about the little, like I said, 18-year-old girls that are getting on OnlyFans and they just suddenly get a boost of money. In their minds, right? They think they understand what's going on. Their managers may think what's going on. Their little team that's helping them make content. Let's say their parents know about this. Their parents may think everything's okay, right? The other side of this is the fan, the audience member. They also believe the exact same thing, but their intentions are different. You see the how the dark side starts to kind of rear its ugly head. For example, if you have a psychological attachment to somebody that you're spending money on, an exuberant amount of money, because again, this is a luxury to be experiencing adult entertainment. Like you don't need this, right? And you see how it can be dangerous for an 18-year-old to have to deal with that on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 30, 40, 50 numbers of fans that are hitting her accounts and DMs with the expectation that they're going to have at least some sort of parasocial relationship, right? Now, you can sit up here and tell me that no, 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 these are reasonable people. Nothing's going to happen. And everything that you're talking about is pretty much a rarity, right? Well, I want you to consider this. When you were in high school, did you notice how we had certain groups of friends that hung out with other groups of friends, right? And did you notice how certain groups of friends had relationships that other groups of friends didn't have, right? Well, there's a dark side and a bright side to those relationships. And having those relationships are important to people. Now, when we all got out of high school and grew up and became adults, and all the people who, maybe dropped out of high school early and started to work, everybody who basically got out of, primary school or whatever, did you notice how when money got involved, a lot of your friends talked less? Right? It became like, okay, maybe your close homies were the ones you locked in with, right? But in general, your class of whatever, you guys aren't locked in as much as you used to be because you were in proximity to one another, right? So now I want you to just think about if your high school class had some kind of benefit to being your friend, right? Let's say being a friend of yours garnered them some kind of like dopamine hit. Like every time they're like, yo, I'm friends with so and so. And they're like telling people and they're like happy to let people know. This is what it's like to be a true fan. Like they're actually like happy to be a Chris Brown fan, happy to be a Taylor Swift fan. And they wear the shirts and they got like the stickers on their cars and they play the music that, they spend the money and all this stuff, right? We it's the good side of being a fan, but we take it for granted because of how easy it's done today. But what then happens is, let's say your friend or you, the friend who's, super popular in high school, you suddenly decide you don't want to be with them no more. You don't want to hang with them for whatever reason. It could be a good reason. Maybe you're just changing your lifestyle and you decide you want to separate yourself from them. Can you see how that would affect how they feel about you and the benefit they got from being your friend? I want you to, I'm asking this question in this way because I want artists and especially audience members to be able to think for themselves when it comes to these positions and being in this, predicament. So as a fan, or as a not a fan, but as an artist, if you were in a situation where people really, really like you, they're spending money to see you, and then suddenly you make a shift in how they're consuming whatever it is you do and how they're getting an enjoyment on whatever it is you do. Can you see how there would be a dark side to this, right? How there would be an issue. So my example in this was a high school person because in this OnlyFans adult entertainment thing, we're speaking of an 18-year-old girl, right? So when you were 17, everybody was like, oh, you're a cute little girl. And then when you turned 18, you became this, right? And then suddenly everything about you changed. The people who thought you were going to be great, as a normal, modest woman have now placed a whole nother stigma on you. The people who thought you were going to be their girlfriend or their wife one day has put a whole nother stigma on you. Now, you can say they shouldn't do that. You can say you don't like that they do that. And you can say that's unfair. You would still have to navigate that as that 18-year-old girl, right? So now that we've seen kind of laid out the foundation here on what it is we're going to be talking about, if you were in the position of, let's say, an artist or an entertainer or content creator, and you had the opportunity to, let's say, make a more sensual branding. I like that phrasing for it, sensual branding, but it wants to kind of like soften the blow on what it is you're actually doing. But if you had an opportunity to do sensual branding, how would you employ it, and what would be, in your mind, the benefit to it? So also layer on to your answer as you think of this, all of the stuff we learned in the past month about AI coming up, the ability to make AI content, and then the ability to monetize your own real content today, right? So if you're a musician, there's one way. If you're a musician slash content creator where you're, making visuals and stuff like that, that's another way. And then live performances, and then merchandise. I want you to think about all of that stuff, and then consider how you're going to make a business model that's going to compete with the biggest engines out there quickly and efficiently at least a pace that you're comfortable with for your own lifestyle. So we're gonna get into our next clip, and I want you guys to think about your answers, and then when you come up with your answers, put them in the chat and think about that with everything I just said, and then with everything we're going to learn. Okay, so we're gonna get into the first one, and this is actually gonna cover a lot of what we're speaking about when it comes to what really comes with being on OnlyFans and making content.
Creators on OnlyFans were not free. They were free until Visa decided they were not. And then they had 6 days of uncertainty before Visa decided they could go back to work. That is not the creator economy. That is a landlord. Let me tell you something about the economics underneath all of this that makes it even worse. The OnlyFans pitch is built on the idea that creators keep 80%. And they do. That number is real. But 80% of what? The platform has over 200 million registered users. Sounds enormous. But the number of those users who have ever paid for anything is somewhere around 1 to 2%, maybe less. The active paying fan base is actually quite small relative to the registered user count. And the revenue from that paying fan base is distributed in a way that looks almost nothing like the egalitarian promise in the marketing. Studies of creator economy platforms consistently find the same basic pattern. The top 1% of creators capture somewhere between 30 and 40% of all the revenue.
What do y'all think this means? If you were to use this as your primary brand, like if your sensual branding is primarily on, let's say, not even just OnlyFans, but just, the idea that only 1% of this particular platform is making 30-40% of the income. Why would you do this with your brand, right? What would be the point of you saying, let's do this with my brand if you knew this information?
The top 10% capture somewhere between 70 and 80%. The remaining 90% of creators are splitting the leftover 20 to 30% among themselves. Run those numbers and you get a median income of less than $180 per month. That is the real number, not the headline number about the creator making 6 figures, not the viral story about the teacher who quit her job, the median, the number that describes what a typical creator actually makes when you strip away the survivorship bias and look at the whole distribution. And here is where the 20% take becomes interesting in a way that should make you uncomfortable. Because 20% of $5 billion in annual transactions is $1 billion. That is the platform's gross revenue before any costs. A significant chunk of that flows upward. And we know it flows upward because of the financial filings in the United Kingdom, the ones that almost nobody read, which showed that in the fiscal year ending November 2021, Leonid Ravinsky received dividends of over $1.1 billion in 1 year, from a platform he purchased for approximately $10 million 3 years earlier. Take a moment with that. $1.1 billion in dividends in 1 year from a platform that was simultaneously publishing press releases about supporting creator financial independence.
One more time, y'all. Slow it down. I'm not even gonna say none.
$1 billion. $1 billion in 1 year, which shows.
I'm gonna go further back so we can get the full context of it, and then he'll do the little breakdown.
A significant chunk of that flows upward. And we know it flows upward because of the financial filings in the United Kingdom, the ones that almost nobody read, which showed that in the fiscal year ending November 2021, Leonid Ravinsky received dividends of over $1.1 billion.
He received $1.1 billion in dividends. Okay, dividends are basically money you receive from, let's say, investing in a company. Like, they give out dividends. Like, if they're just doing good and they're just like, okay, all of our investors, you get a certain percentage for investing in us. He got 1.1 billion. So how much did he put in this? Okay, he put a whole bunch of money into this, right? Got 1.1 billion back. Now, the cool part is, at least for him, is that he don't have to get taxed on any of that, I don't think. No, you do got to get taxed on dividends. I'm tripping. But at least what you're doing here is that he's smart enough to know what to invest in. He was chameleonaire before a chameleonaire.
In 1 year, from a platform he purchased for approximately $10 million 3 years earlier.
So he got 1.1 billion dollars in dividends from something he bought for 10 million. So that's how much he put in there. He put 10 million into a platform, and then 3 years later got 1.1 billion. 3 years.
Take a moment with that. $1.1 billion in dividends in 1 year from a platform that was simultaneously
Oh, I'm sorry, 1 year. I had it wrong.
publishing press releases about supporting creator financial independence. I want to be precise here because precision matters. Radvinsky did not do anything illegal. The platform operates legally. The 20% cut is disclosed. The terms of service are public. Nobody forced any creator to sign up. All of that is true. And it is also true that the structure of this platform, like the structure of almost every platform in the creator economy, is designed to extract the maximum possible value from the tail of the distribution while using the success stories of the top creators as marketing for the people at the bottom.
Okay, we got to break that down too. So this is a part of why I did this. Because when you see young artists and young musicians attempt sensual branding, a part of that is not really understood as to why a young artist would attempt to participate in sensual branding. So when you're seeing, let's say, like I pointed out all the time, like the people on TikTok and stuff like that, like I make a joke, but it's real that the music and stuff, the conversations, all the content where people are just making jokes and using all the memes and stuff like that and using the trending sounds and stuff like that, all of that helps record labels that are then tied to the bigger record labels, right? It's not like each song you get on average is going to be an independent artist. Like when we looked at Put It In My Hand Like It Belonged to Me, like that, he probably is connected to a smaller label that may or may not be connected to a larger major label. But the point here is that he's clearly explaining to you guys on TikTok that all of the posts you're making, whether you like or dislike him, is making him money because it's running through the system. That funnel at the top of this little man with the top hat, it's running through that funnel. And so essentially all the plays, which is you guys listening to it, get him money in this system, right? So now if you look on the left and right of the man with the top hat, do you see the group of people down there that are like cheering with the phones and the signs and the cameras and the laptops and their creators and artists and stuff like that? No money's going towards them. But the reason they're all smiling is because A, there is a psychological dopamine rush you get from the relationship you guys have with social media. Like if I told you to delete your Instagram today, some of you would have a conniption and seize up and we wouldn't see you again. But then on the other hand, if you were to say yes to that and you had a big following, the fans would have a conniption and seize up and then wonder you what happened to you and come looking for you. So we're using all of these behavioral triggers to our advantage as investors. Like we're looking at you guys do that, and then we're building apps to help you do that better. Like when you seen Suno having this kind of like TikTok thing, it's the same thing where now you can just move it to directly very commodified, remember, specifically niched target demographics of people where they're going to be more than likely just musicians talking to musicians. But you'll get basically a system where every time you get on there, you're making money for Suno. It's not really for you to make money, right? It's not meant and designed and built with the purpose of making you money. So now that we understand that, at 18 years old, would you use your sensuality to do that? Would you use your body to do that, right? Now, some of you will be like, nah, I wouldn't do that. But other times you would do this and an opportunity and you don't have a brand.
Like, you don't have any system for a funnel like this, and yet you're still doing the same thing. You don't have no LLC. You don't have anything connecting to you, anything. You don't have a content plan for the year, for the next year, or anything like that. You haven't discovered these things, let alone have these things. Like, some people have these things in their head and are working on it, or maybe you just discovered it as I said it, and you're like, oh, you know, that's a great idea. That's good. But if you're a person who has been doing whatever you've been doing on content, and you haven't even considered this funnel, then you are one of the people on the left and rights of this photo that are making the man in the middle a whole bunch of money, because your participation here is the beneficial part. Twitch is another one right now where a lot of people are saying they're not getting their ad revenue, right? And if you notice on Twitch, they're having an issue constantly over and over with people posting adult entertainment on their platform, because the people who are posting on their platform understand that what sex sells. And the issue that people are noticing is that Twitch is not consistent on whether or not they're going to allow that on their platform. Therefore, it's highlighting somebody like this man in the top hat who knows that every time someone does something viral on their platform, they're going to get more eyes on the platform, which gets them more ad revenue. So if they cut that off, if they were to ban this behavior, they would lose that opportunity. So some people are saying that. Then on the other hand, there are people who, like yourself, are highly attached to this kind of adult entertainment and sensual content, that if they were to cut it off, you wouldn't watch anything else on the platform. And so they're in a conundrum to where they either shut the whole faucet off, or a big chunk of the faucet down to a dribble, to where they now have to fund actual creators, meaning people who are going to actually play video games on Twitch and be gamers, versus people who are trying to be, I guess you can say, provocative, right? They're trying to just get attention for attention's sake, right? And this is the part that makes people so frustrated, because like we just seen earlier in this clip, it's not illegal to take advantage of that. If they know, for example, you have a gambling addiction, I can make a video game based around that subtly enough to where you have to just buy loot boxes to get the best things in the game. You'll have to buy battle passes. You'll have to do things like that. Or maybe you have to get the new mods or the new whatever it is. And then eventually you look up and you spent about $300, $400 on digital pixels. And the person who's making the money is the dude in the middle, and you get the pixels. That's all you get is pixels. And so because people understand this, they use this against you, and it's not illegal. And you guys are happy to do it because you'll, spend money on an 18-year-old OnlyFans, or you'll spend money on a video game battle pass, or you'll spend money on the new sneakers or the new Apple Watch or whatever it is, right? The idea of investing isn't there. Consumerism is there. And so they're taking advantage of that because of what you're consuming. And in this conversation, it's OnlyFans. It's adult entertainment. It's sensual branding. And it works so well because of what we said. It sells itself. It moves this economy basically as a fuel of its own. Like, we almost just have to direct it and tell you where to find it. This is also why you'll see many sex workers and content creators like that on Instagram, where it's not even a platform for that, but Instagram won't remove the content as well, because they know there are a lot of people who will say, I don't watch porn, I just have Instagram, will go on Instagram and watch porn. And so now you have a situation where you have to figure out, well, dang, do I cut all of these people off who make up a majority of our ad revenue, as far as watching the reels, going viral, young women dancing, young men posing in, scantily clad photo shoots and stuff like that? How do we turn this off for the safety of the community and culture, but at the same time make it make sense for the people who are regular Instagram viewers to have content, to have things to look at, to pay for this thing that we have running here? How do we make it make sense? And so what I'm highlighting here is the dark side and the bright side of how your attraction to sensual content is affecting everyone. It affects the children, it affects the fans, it affects the creators. The creators have to get paid a certain way because of how you consume. The children are expecting to be paid a certain way because of the value of the occupations we show them. And then you as a fan are being affected because we have to figure out how to deliver you content in a way that makes sense and is safe, and is also in a way that you're going to repeatedly commit to. Like, if this was, if everybody would do this same kind of, have this same attraction to, like, let's say, working out, then everybody would be selling gym memberships. So it's not a right or wrong or moral thing. It's that this is what you like. This is what you're attracted to. And it transcends everybody's race, identity, and gender.
Creator to sign up. All of that is true. And it is also true that the structure of this platform, like the structure of almost every platform in the creator economy, is designed to extract the maximum possible value from the tail of the distribution while using the success stories of the top creators as marketing for the people at the bottom. The few people at the top are real. Their success is real. And they are also the bait. This is where it gets genuinely interesting. And I want you to stay with me, because what I'm about to tell you is the part that actually changes how you see not just OnlyFans, but the entire framework of the creator economy. There is a concept in economics called a two-sided market. A two-sided market is a platform that serves two distinct groups of users simultaneously. In this case, creators and fans, and extracts value from the interaction between them. The platform does not produce content. The platform does not produce demand. The platform simply sits in the middle, facilitates the transaction, and takes a cut.
Can you guys name a platform like that? I can name 5 right now. Can you guys think of a platform that does that? I'll rewind it just so we can understand what he's asking.
A two-sided market. A two-sided market is a platform that serves two distinct groups of users simultaneously. In this case, creators and fans, and extracts value from the interaction between them. The platform does not produce content. The platform does not produce demand. The platform simply sits in the middle, facilitates the transaction, and takes a cut.
So, if you haven't by now, I can tell you what I can think of. The first one that came to my mind was Instagram, or now would be considered Meta. So Instagram and Facebook. They have these creator programs and all this stuff like that, and everybody's on there trying to tell you how to make money and stuff like that. But there is a huge divide in people who create and people who, I guess you can say, consume content on there, and then the people who are making money. So there's like hundreds of thousands of people who are in the creator program making content, making $100, $200, $300, maybe even $1,000. But what people are thinking is that when you get into the creator program, you can make a living. Okay, it's not an income stream. You can make a living. And so the gap here is that Facebook has to tie the experience between people who are not creators, meaning they just watching content that comes to them, and the people who actually create, by figuring out how to service the ability to create on the platform, but also service the ability to watch creations on the platform. So that's their job. They're servicing that relationship, right? And the way they make it work, at least in this one angle, is that they have to nurture that relationship between the two of y'all. So they're giving us so many ways to put out content. Like on Instagram, it'll be like instants, you have a story, you got reels, you got pictures, you got slides, all these ways to just inundate y'all with our face, right? And so what that does for them is it keeps the creators on the app. We got to run through ads. We got to more than likely pay for the different features. We also give them data, meaning they understand what companies are using what, how they're interacting with people and stuff like that. And then they can sell data to these companies from data brokers on these companies, so that way they can understand their audience a little better. But again, they're not creating content here. Instagram is not creating content. And then for the content, or the people who watch content, they get to experience all of this, but they also have it in a way that they don't have to think. I keep bringing up when you open up Apple Music on your phone, and then suddenly you just get told what's hot. Hey, click this, watch this. They already have those systems in place. And so now that they figure that out, when somebody tells you as a fan, hey, you need to get off of Instagram, it feels like you're losing a relationship. And so it was a joke for a while, and I paid attention to it because watching humans function is so interesting to me. But I paid attention to a while where they would say, hey, ladies, if you had a choice between keeping your Instagram or marrying the man of your dreams, which would you choose, right? Now, as I say that question out loud, the phenomena, I'm going to just explain how I observe this. The phenomena that would happen is that we would all process the question, and then we would think, oh, well, Instagram's an app. The man of your dreams is rare. She would pick the man of her dreams, right? That's what we would all think. But what actually occurred, and which made this so interesting, was that a lot of women would say no. They would rather keep the Instagram. Now, we can sit up here and make up a bunch of reasons on why they're saying that, right? But the point here was that, do you think Instagram knows that? Do you think Instagram has noticed that in their data? Do you think Instagram finds this as an issue or finds this as a positive? Kanye West, one of the biggest rappers in the world, said Instagram got your bitch. I don't got your bitch. And so when you hear rappers use that in their sensual branding, like, yeah, I took your bitch, they're not really saying anything anymore, right? But do you think Instagram knows that? That's what made this conversation so, controversial for me personally, because it wasn't so much about like, oh man, my girl probably got an Instagram and she don't pay attention to me no more. It was more so like, well, how the hell did somebody get the clear brain of an adult to say, I'm not going to choose what I think is probably very, very rare and valuable in my life to then stay on this social media app? Like, how did you pull that off, right? Without using something like, let's say, sensuality. Because if it was OnlyFans, some people could kind of make the argument that there's some kind of like weird attachment to OnlyFans or like adult entertainment. But when people are saying Instagram, you're thinking of like a diary, a photo book, friends network. Like, you're not thinking of nothing that's like life-changing. But they think it is. The fans believe it is. And somehow Instagram has found a way to nurture that relationship between these people and the app. Now, it's not just women. Like, it's like everybody. But they use this question, and it was such an eye-opener for me to see how valuable and important technology is to you guys. Because it was at the time when I was doing this, or at least hearing this conversation, I was trying to figure out how to get people to go to live shows. I was trying to get people to figure out what is making people enjoy music if all we watch is YouTube and Instagram and stuff like that. And then when they started to say, I would rather keep my Instagram profile than marry the man of my dreams, it was like, oh, okay, this is bigger than probably humanity has ever dealt with before. It's like, this is craziness.
This is in structure almost identical to every middleman arrangement in the history of commerce. The record label that controlled distribution and took 80% of an artist's earnings. The literary agent that owned the rights to a writer's catalog. The gallery that controlled access to collectors and took 40% of every sale. The OnlyFans pitch was that it was different, that the 20% was fundamentally unlike the 80% that a record label took, because at least you were keeping 80. And mathematically, yes, 80 is more than 20. But the label also provided studios, producers, marketing, distribution, and radio promotion.
So that right there is the bright side. This is actually a good point here. That's the bright side of being on a record label. On a record label, yes, you do get the upfront advance, and you are technically taking a loan, and you are bound by a contract. But ideally, if they're doing good business, you do get access to really, really dope things like state-of-the-art studios, a very good network, probably some advice, mentorship, just from being around all the new technology and things that they're working on, or just the group of people. It could be a small record label, but they're just, they have a good business model that you could learn from. So like, that's the bright side. The dark side is that you have to bring forth your effort, and if you don't, you can definitely lose your legs from underneath yourself trying to, play with the big boys. But yeah, that's kind of his point here, is that though OnlyFans can say, oh yeah, you're going to keep more of the money, they're also giving you less service. Like they're not giving you a state-of-the-art, I guess you can say production agency kind of like relationship. You're logging onto a platform, right? So that's why, like, for me personally, when I think about my music, I do everything, right? And for me, the cut I get makes sense because I do everything. Now, if a record label came up and they were like, oh, we want to take the load off of all of this, like they're like, we're going to run the live stream, we're going to help you design the logo, we're going to run the merch websites, oh yeah, and then when you want to post content, we'll do the meta. If they decide to take all of that off of me, then it could make sense for them to negotiate some different numbers, right? Because it just makes sense. It's not really I do or don't like record labels. It makes sense. That's the point here.
OnlyFans provides a website and payment processing. The question is not what percentage they take. The question is what they do with it. Who accumulates the power as the platform grows? and who is expendable if the business model changes. And the answer to who is expendable showed up in August of 2021 when the platform was willing to throw its entire creator base under a bus in the name of banking relationships and then pulled them back only when the banking relationships stabilize.
Okay, so you remember what I was talking about when I said the R&B singer and the fan of the R&B singer have a very particular relationship that if it changed would would be very, very problematic. Well, that's what happened here, right? So because they had a transactional relationship with their creators on this platform, it wasn't a relationship that was binding, right? It wasn't one that was like for example, you say you love your boyfriend, right? But if your boyfriend, like, you know, the joke, if your boyfriend became a worm, would you still love him, right? Same thing here, right? OnlyFans became something different in a moment, and it was because they were actually being threatened by the banking systems and the payment processors, because OnlyFans has a huge, what's the word I'm trying to say here? Like a refund problem. Like people, like the little 18-year-old I be talking about, some dude would be super horny, give that girl $300 and be like, oh shit, I have a wife, and then try to charge back. And payment processors do not want to deal with that headache, especially on a company that's making as much money as OnlyFans was. That's a lot of money to keep just moving and trying to, like, it's a bad relationship, right? So what they were threatening was that, okay, we're just not going to work with this particular website, which means that all the processes will either be super expensive going through somebody else, or run the risk of just having, like, you know, bad transactions because you're just working with a less reputable company, right? So in order to do that, they were willing to say, you know what, we're going to turn off the sensual branding, quote unquote. We're going to say all of you content creators who have been making money, which is really like the 1% of all of them, but everybody else who's in here just trying, we're about to cut the spigot off and you don't get to be on here anymore. And you know what happened? They damn near seized up and caught a conniption, like I told you. And so when that happened, they realized that the relationship that they had really wasn't transactional. These people were attached to this website. You had people making livings, you had people making identities. You got some people who, when this is the crazy part, this is kind of why I'm doing this, is that you have people who will tell me they got an album coming out, right? And then I go to their link, and in the link at the top is not an album, is not music, is not this YouTube channel or anything. It's an OnlyFans page. You'll see people who have an OnlyFans page and it'll be like 2 posts. And you'll see people who will say they're a sex worker or content creator and they don't create content, right? And so when this guy with the top hat sees that on his platform, he's like, well, we don't really see no value in this. You're not even like you said, you don't have a studio. You're not putting out content consistently. You're not making money. Like you're here, you're participating. Like all the people on Instagram, the girls who would say they wouldn't give up Instagram, they're not making money. They're just there, right? They're making a diary, they're giving photos, they're sharing experiences, creating a journey. But as far as like, hey, I'm competing to make bread on this app, like that's not what's happening, right? And so he's looking at this thinking like, well, I'm here to compete to make bread on this app. He's like, well, let me remove all the people that are just chilling and they can just go do something else for free wherever they want so I can keep my platform. And they called a conniption. They damn near almost seized up and went crazy and couldn't do nothing. So what they wound up doing is reverting it. I think they moved to a different payment processor now. And then suddenly everybody's kind of like cool making money again. But again, the model is still the same. So it's only like the few people that are up there, or the people who can actually get like consistent, I guess you could say, follower viewership, that are actually making a difference on this particular platform. Which then I have to pose to artists and creators. Now that you know this, does this change how you look at what you're doing? Like if you're an artist, does this change how you look at what you're doing? Like if you wanted to, let's say you're an R&B singer right now, and this is the big one, like for female singers and rappers and stuff, and you want to do something sensual and sexy, should you post it on Instagram? Should you post it on Twitter? Should you post it on TikTok? Now, if your answer is yes, how does it make sense for you, right? And if for you stop at, well, I like the post or my fans will see it, then that means the priority is not making money, right? We all got to learn this. Like there's nothing wrong with not knowing this or not even agreeing with it. But the point is that you have an opportunity in front of you. It's literally just right there, laying there. And so for you to then say, I'm going to make a video today or tonight, or I'm going to live stream, and all I'm gonna do is post it. Just know where that funnel goes.
The creators were not the customers, they were the inventory. Here is the pattern interrupt that I think is the most important data point in this entire story. OnlyFans is not unique. The dynamics I just described are not.
That's funny. And look, just like we said, y'all, somebody said in the chat, that's like every damn social media app. Look, he's showing us right here is like everything. And I'm sure the one on the far left is probably either Amazon or your grocery store app.
Specific to adult content or to this particular platform. They are the operating model of the entire creator economy. YouTube takes 45% of ad revenue from creators, not 20%. Spotify pays artists an average of between $0.003 and $0.005 per stream.
These numbers suck, bro. And it blows my mind that people still use Spotify. But anyway, but think about it this way. So if YouTube takes 45%, and I want you to think of your favorite content creator on YouTube and how much money they make, right? One of the people I watch, they make like 100,000, 6 figures a month, right, on YouTube, at a 45% cut. Imagine if they moved to OnlyFans and OnlyFans did not have the stigma of being an adult content website. Or maybe if it did, it just didn't matter, right? Let's say if it was just like in there, but like not really messing with the mainstream algorithm, they would be making 20%. I mean, there would be a 20% cut, not a 45% cut. So think of how much more money there is, right? So now that we understand that, do you see why, in addition to our attraction, our like physiological attraction to sexuality, do you see why so many people were attracted to OnlyFans and why they thought using sexuality branding was going to work for them? Whether they were sex workers or not, like, you know, there's freaking like moms of like 3 that are just like, I'm going to be a diva mistress lady on OnlyFans. Like, they're doing that, right? And the idea is that there's some income there, right? And so if they were to think about the percentage, that would play a role. But I don't think that's for most of them, seeing how 1% is making up 30 to 40% of the income on OnlyFans, right? So it's probably even like more exponentially small, or it's exponentially smaller when you think of platforms like Twitter or Instagram or YouTube, where you have even a higher variety of things capturing people's attention. But yeah, Spotify and these music apps, they're the worst. Like, I don't hold it against y'all that y'all like Spotify, because I get the platform is just one of those things. Like, if you've seen like somebody eating, I don't know, if you've seen somebody eating at a restaurant and you knew that restaurant was like had slavery going on in the background, you'd be like, I know why you like the chicken. I'm sure it's delicious, but they have slaves.
Are not specific to adult content or to this particular platform. They are the operating model of the entire creator economy. YouTube takes 45% of ad revenue from creators, not 20%. Spotify pays artists an average of between $0.003 and $0.005 per stream, which is a number so small it is almost theoretical. The App Store takes 30% of every purchase a developer makes through it. Substack takes 10%. Patreon takes up to 12%. Every single platform in the creator economy is a two-sided market with a toll booth in the middle. And the toll booth operator is the one who gets rich, while the creators are busy arguing about whether the algorithm is fair. The genius of the OnlyFans positioning, and the reason it worked so effectively as a brand, is that 20% genuinely felt different in context. Against the background of record labels and Spotify and YouTube, 20% sounded like a liberation movement. The entire marketing strategy was built on comparison to worse alternatives, rather than on the question of whether any percentage taken by a passive intermediary is justified when the creators are producing all of the value. The answer to that question, if you ask it plainly, is not comfortable for any platform that has ever published a press release about empowering creators.
And the issue with this is that, like I said, for fans, it's a tough, like you said, it's a tough conversation, because I explain this to people who, you know, consume content. I call them consumers, but you know, if you guys, if you're subscribed or have sent a super chat to somebody on YouTube, if you're subscribed on Twitch, or if you got a Patreon subscription, an OnlyFans subscription and stuff like that, like, you are the person that is like one of the most valuable people, because you're willing to push the button, right? But when we think about what it took for you to do that, we got to really be honest on whether or not it's because of the platform or it's because you appreciate what that person is doing for you. Because if you were to truly be honest, a lot of people are subscribed to multiple people, and the multiple content creators and people that you're subscribed to are found on a similar platform. Like, it's not like you are like, I go to Instagram to listen to 2 Chainz, and then I get on YouTube to watch financial guru content specifically from this one guy, and then I get on Facebook just for like, people aren't like that, right? And so what you find out is that, just like I said on Twitch, how they'll have sensual content or BDSM content and then say it goes against their terms of service, but then they won't ban it directly, is because they know it will then affect all the other things that the people who watch BDSM content will then consume. So if I ban this content, it'll be likely you'll just leave the platform. Like, you won't just stay here and then be like, oh dang, I lost this one thing, let me go find something else. No, you would feel like you lost the platform at that point. And so they're in a conundrum where they're trying to figure out, dang, how do I make a lot of money, but then how do I figure out a way to satisfy the relationships I have with the creators who should be allowed to create, which is the BDSM people on Twitch, but then also have a system for them to not be stigmatized on the platform because we're not known for this. And it also goes directly against our content, and we're also exposing our audience to something that we really aren't trying to expose our audience to. It's out of our control because we're empowering the creators.
Now let me bring the payment processor subplot back in, because it does not end with the August 2021 reversal. The resolution of that crisis was not a resolution. It was a temporary ceasefire. The fundamental dynamic, which is that OnlyFans is dependent on payment processors that can pull their services at any time and for any reason, did not change. What changed was that Visa and MasterCard decided, for the moment, that the relationship was worth maintaining. But they could change their minds again. And they know it. And OnlyFans knows it. And that knowledge shapes every significant decision the platform makes about content policy, creator policy, and financial infrastructure. This is why, despite the reversal, OnlyFans has continued to quietly tighten its content policies in the years since. There have been incremental expansions of prohibited content categories, new verification requirements, new restrictions on certain types of transactions. None of these changes generated the same press coverage as the August announcement, because none of them were announced as dramatically. They were rolled out gradually through policy updates buried in terms of service documents, the way most significant corporate decisions affecting creators are actually communicated. Not with a press release, with a checkbox you have to click before you can log in. The creators who depend most on the platform, the ones who have built their entire income structure around it, are the ones least able to push back against these incremental changes.
Now, the reason why they're the least powerful to push back against these things is because they're not leveraged. I just got done explaining to you that you're going to be on a platform that you don't own, that's being serviced through basically your own sweat equity, and you don't have any leverage on it. So of course, when they want to make changes, they can do so without your say. And this is my point on, like, if you were to get into sensual branding, knowing how much money there is, why would you be the one to do the branding, right? It's one thing to do it to understand things, like, oh yeah, you just want to dip your toes into it and learn it. Like, if you think about the legit porn stars, like the women who make money in porn today, they're not just filming all day. Some of them is directors. They're not just sitting there behind the camera directing all day. They're running businesses. Like, they out and about. You see them on podcasts, even on YouTube, talking and stuff like that. Like, they're not just sitting in front of the camera just creating content all day. So if you see a rapper or a singer and all they do is sing, and you don't see them running some kind of music business model, then you can see where their mind is as far as what they want to focus on for money, right? So yeah, and also when you do, like, I guess, log into YouTube or Instagram or something like that, as a creator, there'll be a little box that says, hey, you want to check the new updated terms of service? You want to do that real quick? No, you good? All right, cool. Bet. Let's get back to work. And then you just be like, oh, how come we can't post this stuff no more? And you want to start arguing. So again, you have to be aware of this stuff because I wouldn't call this a dark side. I would just call this business. As far as regulating like adult content, you would want to do that reasonably because of what had happened with Pornhub and things like that, where you have situations of people uploading content that is clearly criminal, and you don't want that on your platform unless somebody in here watching this is enjoyment of criminal footage and things like that. But yeah, generally we don't want that in our platforms and stuff like that. We kind of want to protect people and not make them victims. And so in order for them to do that, a lot of it, the reason why they're not being all grandiose about announcing stuff like that is because it still kind of creates this idea, at least in your minds, that there is content available on the platform like that. Like if Facebook was like, yo, we're cutting down on the beheading videos, you'd be like, there's beheading videos on it? And you go look, so that's why they don't do that.
Because leaving is expensive. Not just emotionally expensive, though it is that too, but financially expensive in a very literal way. A creator who has spent 2 years building a subscriber base on OnlyFans has built that subscriber base on OnlyFans.
And don't do that. Like try to be platform agnostic, but really just have your brand as something. Like he's saying people that made their entire income on OnlyFans. Like I just wouldn't do that. It's like somebody who has one job for 10 years. Like just one job. That's crazy.
Subscribers are on OnlyFans. The payment infrastructure is on OnlyFans. The creator's profile, built through years of marketing and community cultivation, lives on OnlyFans. Moving that subscriber base to a different platform requires convincing every paying customer to follow you somewhere new, and research on subscriber churn in this context consistently shows that a significant percentage of subscribers do not make that move.
Okay, so now do you see why it's very, very, very hard for somebody like Twitch to ban content like this, for somebody like Instagram to ban girls twerking, for somebody who has an Instagram to say, I'm not going to delete it? Do you see why it's difficult? Because it would take for you to then think and have leverage in how to now maintain your stuff without them. There's no longer somebody servicing the ability for you to create, film, and edit videos anymore. There's no longer somebody servicing you the ability to push your, new twerk video in front of all the horny guys at night. Like there's nobody doing that anymore. And so just like a SoundCloud rapper, you guys will now get to see what it takes to actually get people to like you outside of just saying you do the thing you do, right? Instagram makes that so easy for people that they sound dumb when you realize how much more work they could be doing, but it makes them think that because they're constantly hitting post that they're actually committing effort. And you're not. You're at least in terms of what we're talking about, you're doing basically the equivalent of logging in. Like you just logged into the app if you post. But if you're posting and you're like running an entire business on the app, then yeah, I can see how this can be a bit of a hassle. But again, it's only a hassle because you're not prepared and you're relying on Instagram.
The platform knows this. It is not accidental that subscriber contact information is not portable off the platform. This is the mechanism through which platforms accumulate power over time. Not by taking more at the moment of creation, but by making the cost of leaving grow larger and larger the longer you stay. In the economics literature, this is called lock-in, and it is one of the most reliable ways to build a durable monopoly. You do not cage the creators directly. You just make the cage feel over time like the only place where the food is. Radvinsky, who understands digital media economics in a way that most tech executives pretend to, built this lock-in intentionally. The platform's tools for building subscriber relationships, the messaging systems, the subscription tiers, the tip mechanisms, all of them create intimacy between creator and fan that is mediated entirely through OnlyFans infrastructure.
So if you've ever noticed, if you just get on the internet as an adult, you'll see that a lot of adult content creators, they don't use messaging through, typically, like if you're like gonna, I guess, be like a super trick, they'll try to get you off of these apps. They'll try to get your actual phone number and email because then it's their data, right? And again, if they are a legit business, then this is complete cool and legal. But the problem is that most people doing this don't understand this. Like he said, most tech people think they understand this, but just think of how many creators have some platform or some manager like Finesse 2 Times trying to get some girl to understand this, and he don't even understand it, right? And so even when I explain this to people, like if I tell a content creator on OnlyFans or even a musician this, the resistance I usually get is that they don't believe that this works. They don't believe that humans are this, I guess you can say, responsive to this kind of stuff. Like they really think that people like them because of their characteristics, and that's the primary driver. Like they don't think when a salesman, like the even the image of the dude in this picture right here, he's wearing a suit and top hat. They don't think, like, even if I explain this to creators, they don't think that wearing that suit matters. Like little things, like how women would wear like makeup a certain way, walk a certain way, talk a certain way, address you a certain way, use a certain tone. Like today, for some reason, artists and people in general just don't think that matters anymore. They think just saying you're a good person and then you can just do whatever you want is going to be enough. And that's not the case. So this guy figured out, well, if I can figure out the formula, which is this lock thing in economics, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to say it doesn't work and try to change it.
Every message sent is a message sent on OnlyFans. Every payment is a payment through OnlyFans. Every relationship is, at its foundation, a relationship that OnlyFans could theoretically terminate at any time. That is not a bug. That is the product. Let me tell you something about what the top creators actually experience, because it complicates the story in a way that matters. The women and men at the very top of the OnlyFans income distribution are genuinely making extraordinary money. There are creators who earn over $1 million a year from the platform. There are a handful who earn significantly more. For them, the 20% cut is painful in the abstract, but manageable in practice, because 20% of a very large number is still a very large number. These creators have real agency. They have legal and financial teams. Some of them have negotiated custom arrangements with the platform. Their experience of OnlyFans is categorically.
Did you hear that last part? Some of them have negotiated custom arrangements on the platform. So again, the little 18-year-old thing is always a cool trope. But you got to think, if Instagram knows what's going on with their content and they see it and they don't ban it, if Twitch sees what's going on with their content and they see it and they don't ban it, do you think if OnlyFans sees the content and they don't have to ban it, like it doesn't go against their terms of service, do you think they would negotiate a deal with somebody who's willing to join or somebody who has leverage? So if OnlyFans would do it, I'm not alleging this, but it is a possibility to believe that there are people on these other platforms that would have custom negotiated deals in order to get them in front of you.
Categorically different from the experience of the creator making $180 a month. But here's what I want you to notice about those top creators. They are the ones who appear in the press coverage. They are the ones whose success stories are amplified by the platform.
The Bonnie Blues, the Bad Babies, those are the people that they're going to show you, man, you can make a bunch of money on Instagram. They're not going to show you the hundreds of thousands of adults that are on there that just be chilling.
Marketing, explicitly or implicitly. They are the ones whose lives and incomes validate the premise that OnlyFans is a path to financial independence. And they represent, by number, something close to 1% of the creator base. The other 99% are subsidizing the platform's growth and Radvinsky's dividends, while the marketing tells them they are on the road to the same destination. This is survivorship bias operating at industrial scale. And it works because the human brain is not built to assess probability distributions.
Okay, the human brain is not built to assess probability distribution. It's not built to do it. You can probably get yourself to do it, but it's not built to do it, okay? Did y'all know that before you started making content? Like, did y'all think about that? Was that a consideration when you started to become a content creator, when you started uploading yourself on the internet? So as we have this conversation throughout the week, I'm showing you the dark sides and the bright sides of things, right? The bright side is that yes, you can get on the internet and, you know, post your content. But if you didn't know that you can't really like rationalize the predictability of what's going to happen to you, would you have done it? Would you put young people to do it? Would you put your kids on the internet or give them a social media profile or let them watch TV or YouTube and shit like that? Would you do that knowing what you just know you heard?
Hear one story about the teacher who made $300,000 in a year on OnlyFans, and we think the category is real, the path is achievable, the platform is what it says it is. We do not intuitively adjust for the fact that For every one of those stories, there are thousands of creators who never broke $500 a month and quietly gave up. The platform knows this, of course.
The quiet quitting is the part that I see more than anything. It's the people that, though things slowed down, they didn't keep at it, they just quit.
Every platform knows this. The creator economy as a category depends on this psychological feature of human cognition, the way that a visible success can make an invisible failure seem like a personal shortcoming rather than a structural inevitability. It is the same mechanism that makes people buy lottery tickets. Not because they have done the probability math, but because somewhere nearby, someone did win, and that presence in the cultural environment feels like evidence of personal possibility rather than statistical noise.
And I think a lot of times when we consider this, especially as artists and stuff like that, we do the same thing. Like, we'll look at a rapper and be like, man, he got $1 million deal. I want $1 million deal. All he did was rap and dance. And it don't make sense, right? Usually when I look at an artist, I try to break down like how and why and what we're looking at, right? So one of the things I've noticed first is that many times when I see a successful rapper, I check first to see if he's gang affiliated, because gang organizations love laundering money through music. The next thing I look for is if his record label is just subsidizing everything, because, you know, you could just be funding money into a career, which is cool, but it just, you know, I got to make sure I know that that's happening. And then lastly, I would like to know how or what you plan on doing with your investments beyond that. Like, if it's not gang or a record label loan, then I just want to know, well, what's the plan here? Like, as a musician, like, what's the goal? You just want to be out here making a bunch of songs and diddy bopping in front of cars and women, or do you want to actually like shake up the industry somehow? Like, you have some kind of new idea, technology or something like that, right? So I'm saying that to say this: most of people don't think like this, right? Most people get into OnlyFans, get into adult entertainment, and they want to be singers, and they use sensual branding as a way to kind of just be like, oh man, this is really fun. I feel cute. Boys like me, and it doesn't help them, right? And it could help them, but in order for them to get to the point to where they can think that way, it also is not sexy. It's not as fun and is exciting, which is why they'd rather just twerk on Instagram or like post their butt and like sext on Twitter and act like memes are like important. You see people in Discord just spending hours in there just doing nothing, just hanging out, just chilling. Like, there's things you could be doing to make money, but because you just don't want to, these tech companies take advantage of that. They know you're going to hang out with your friends here. They know you're going to use their tools to stream. They know you're going to sit on their platforms and curate photos and little cute captions, or maybe you're on Threads and you want to talk about the latest concerts or who looked funny at the Met Gala. They know you're going to do that. But because you're not willing to do that on your own platform, on your own time, with your own audience, or at least try to garner your own audience through these platforms, they're making all the money. So again, if I explain this to you, it'd feel like I'm telling you that your boyfriend is not cool or something. Like, that's how you feel now that I'm saying this. You feel like, nah, I'm doing well. I'm doing something. I'm making a difference. Like, you're telling yourself this right now as you hear my voice say this, but it's not true. Because the difference is that you're competing with the person who owns the app. You're not competing with your high school self, right? There's a 55-year-old dude right now who's logging into Instagram. It's like 10:20 in the morning right now. He's logging into Instagram. He's probably going to look at like food videos. He's going to do that for like 20 minutes on his lunch break and then get back to work. That 20 minutes that he just did is going to be extrapolated to all the other Americans that are going to do the same thing within this hour. That's what you're up against. You're not up against your little punk ass followers, okay? Your little friend group from high school, your little buddies and pals from college. Like, you're not up against that. You're up against the world economy, okay? And so if you want to be an artist, you want to be a content creator, you say you want to be about this, understanding that, what are you going to do? Are you going to still do the same thing? You're still going to post the same way? You're going to run that same schedule? You're going to still do the same kind of branding? Or are you going to take the power into your own hands? So let us get into the next clip. That was actually a really, really good clip to actually get this started off with. A great understanding of why and what adult entertainment looks like today too. Let's continue.
Or want to work through more questions, go to GPT's AI and ask GPTs to help you formulate your adult brand. It is so good at this. You can ask it to give you questions to help you identify the brand that you should build. And it's going to give you these clarifying questions to help you get some clarity in that head of yours. Sometimes when we're so creative as people, we tend to not do these very structured, rigid tasks or go through these processes. GPTs can help you with that.
So this is a video, and this is a really short reaction because we got more content to get into. But essentially what she shows you in this video is how to build a brand as a adult content creator, right? Now, we went through all the things that the systems that you have to deal with, like the platforms and the you know, what's going on psychologically and what your fans are going to do, right? Now, let's say if you wanted to do all of that, right? And we talked about this last week. You wanted to do all that, but you just don't like that process. You just, the creative process of figuring out how to build a fan base and a brand and all that stuff. You don't want to do that. Well, so what she's suggesting here is to use, I think it's called GPTEs, but you can use almost any AI model. She's saying use AI essentially to bridge that learning curve, bridge that gap in the learning curve, right? And so now you can take things that you need to work on to get easier understanding and things like that. So with that though, what kind of questions would you ask AI, right? Would you be asking AI, how do I take advantage of the lock system in OnlyFans' business model? Would you be asking questions like, what should I price my OnlyFans at? Would you be asking it, what kind of content actually would make me money that competes with a Victoria's Secret model? Or would you just ask it, hey, how do I get started on OnlyFans, and just make it, and it just shows you how to sign up on the website? Like, again, wrap your mind about what you want, what you're doing, how you're doing it, and what you're really expecting, right? Like I said, a lot of you are going to get online today. You're going to do this today. I guarantee it. You're going to get online today and you're going to do something, and you're only going to make money for the platform you're on. That's it. Like, for example, myself, I'm recording this. I'm building, like, you know, leverage as far as a catalog of a show, right? That's how I do this. Eventually, the goal is to get monetized on YouTube, but the goal specifically primarily is for the brand, not YouTube. But I've made that distinction as an individual. You may not have made that distinction yet. You may be watching this thinking you've done that back in high school when you made a username. But your username is not attached to anything. You don't have an LLC, you don't have a business ID, you don't have any type of thing tying you outside of the platform to something that you own, you have leverage to, right? So if you are the person that's doing this, the odds of you watching this and then disagreeing with me probably comes from the fact that you believe something in your brand you own that you actually don't own. You may actually believe that your YouTube channel means something, right? But the issue is that you can have a 50 kajillion million subscriber YouTube channel, and if YouTube got banned by the government, you would lose all of it. So you got to really be clear on what ownership is, as far as what we're looking at and as far as what branding is. Like, what is your brand? Are you a OnlyFans model? If not, then should that be your primary focus on content? Should you be shaping your brand around that? And if it's something you want to have amongst your brand, how do you make it work if it's not your focus? Like, if you know that sex sells and it's primarily a physiological trigger for most people, how do you navigate that if you want to do something like what I'm doing, if you want to just talk to people about regular stuff, right? So what do you do? And the answers you come up with should be clear to you. You shouldn't be sitting there saying, oh, I'm gonna shrug and not do it no more. I'm gonna keep doing what I was doing. You should really be thinking about this.
It's not just your creative tool, but it's also a tool you can use in your adult business in so many ways. So if you're interested in that, you can click the link down in our bio for GPTs and leverage that for your creator business so that you can work smarter and not harder.
So yeah, I think that's a pretty good idea for a lot of people to be using AI to figure it out, how to bridge the gap and things like that. The key thing too, I think we should try to focus on here is when we're looking at developing and shaping a brand, do we consider how much we know about that? Or do we think we just know what we like and we're just going to try stuff? Like, there's a lot of stuff I learned about sales that I just didn't know about sales, that people, when I explained it to them, they acted like they already knew that information, but then were not successful in sales. Like, it'd be like, if you know your tone matters and how you talk to people, right? Meaning that you are in control of your tone, not that a certain tone gets you a certain result. It's just that you're in control of it, right? And then if you say you know that, right? But then if you're a person who's in like retail, like I see a cashier or something like that, and you're just not good at using your tone to get the results you want, then it makes me wonder if you actually knew that or not, right? It's different if like you're just talking to your family and friends, because you know your family and friends, y'all just have weird relationships like that. But if you're trying to do a business, right, and you know tone matters, and you're not getting it across that you're trying to use your tone in a certain way, then I can see how people are, or at least it makes me think that you don't really understand what it is that you're trying to do, but you have heard of it, you know. So let's get into the next clip.
And then OnlyFans hit the scene. And some may snicker at it, but OnlyFans is a really important piece to this puzzle because it was the first place that allowed a certain side of the entertainment industry to create a community outside of a forum that we were used to, and actually had to pay to be in it. This is before Discord really took off, right? So we're now seeing the communal aspects come into play in the digital space along with the streaming, and they're going to clash together. So this is what's bringing in streaming 2.0. And I've said this before. You got to dig through my YouTube page, but I've said this before. But let me keep going. I don't want to get stuck here because I got a lot to talk about today. In 2025, artists will push for D2C aggressively. Right now in 2024, we've seen the ramping up of artists promoting their releases on direct-to-consumer platforms. This momentum will close out the year, further weakening streaming platforms. In 2025, D2C will become commonplace amongst artists. That's what I'm just saying what it is. Amongst artists, not the public yet. And we will begin to see clever ways of selling music and experiences directly to the consumer via digital platforms. We may also see, watch this, Apple Music taking market share from Spotify because it already has the infrastructure to relaunch parts of iTunes back into Apple Music.
Okay, so as some of you would probably hear this probably sounds like, oh man, this is exciting, this is new, but this is not new. This has actually been a thing that artists have been talking about since I think the 90s, really. Like, it almost makes no sense why you don't go directly to artists for their music. It makes no sense. And so again, as we keep giving the fans and you guys as listeners this information, it's making even less sense the more you continue to participate in this stuff. So like if we just said earlier that Spotify is giving your favorite artist, whoever it is you say you love, your homeboy who's a rapper, your sister who sings and all that stuff, if you know Spotify is giving them a fraction of a penny per stream, why do you still continue to participate in that, right? Now, it sounds like I'm giving you some kind of like conviction, like why do you support animal violence and stuff like that? But really it's the same logic. It's just not as serious. It's the same logic. Like if you knew a company was paying their workers a certain income that was not livable, some of you would burn the warehouse down, right? And so I'm pointing you this out to you just to show you how easy it is for us to act like it's not a big deal. And then also to show you how easy it is for corporations to take advantage of this, right? He's also saying at the end of this, we may also see Apple Music taking market share from Spotify. So they're going to take market share, meaning like not take over Spotify, but the amount of, let's say, audience or people available to Spotify is going to shrink because they already have the infrastructure to relaunch parts of iTunes, which is an app pretty much anybody who has an Apple or Mac device, you're attached to it. They're going to release parts of iTunes back into Apple Music. And if you guys didn't know, iTunes and Apple Music are two different platforms. So what they're showing you is that the tech companies are still going to take advantage of the direct to consumer model. So now that I've said that out loud, and now that you've heard it and you understand what I just said, do you view your artists any different? The next time you want to stream a song or buy a new album, do you view that process any different? Because I could sit up here like a crazed vegan and tell you, put the sandwich down, motherfucker, and then just start smacking food out of your hand, right? But I'm actually offering you an opportunity to think for yourself and ask yourself, does it make sense to say you support an artist and then continue to stream their music?
Platforms. We may also see, watch this, Apple Music taking market share from Spotify because it already has the infrastructure to relaunch parts of iTunes back into Apple Music. We may see this. And this might be why there was a report that recently came out about over the next 10 years, Apple plans to sell 500 million iPhones, something along those lines. This might be one catalyst to it.
And remember what I keep telling you guys, selling 500 million iPhones means that there's going to be 500 million pairs of eyes looking at the app, telling us to listen to Drake, telling us to listen to Taylor Swift. Whoever the record labels can get their hands on or get in front of that platform, that's the race right there. The tech companies have a certain threshold they're trying to meet, and the record companies are trying to take advantage of that by being there on the shelf. Okay, that is what you, as an artist watching this, is up against as well. You're not sitting up here up against some band down the street. Okay, this is everybody is on the same playing field.
Because people might want to experience music in a different way. Okay, check it out. 2026, Even will go head to head with Bandcamp. Now, I see this coming a mile away, and Even will go head to head with Bandcamp. Neither will win, though. It will be Coke versus Pepsi, and some will choose one over the other. I recognize the benefits of both, but Even would be my choice. Bandcamp will be for the starters, and Even will be for the intermediates, because you can't discover on Even yet, but on Bandcamp you can. And I feel like this is really due to having enough content on Even. Now, if Even...
Okay, so even as I'm hearing this is annoying to hear, but just think about this. He's talking about Even, which is apparently a new competitor. There's Bandcamp. Bandcamp beat SoundCloud. SoundCloud and Bandcamp all compete with YouTube Music. All of those compete with Spotify, compete with Deezer, compete with Amazon Music, compete with Patreon, compete with TikTok. So at what point as an artist should I just say, all right, you know what, come to my website, right? Because I could do that. Like, I could start at DameSmiff.com and just have specific exclusive content behind a paywall that only my exclusive fans would know about, and I could treat y'all like gold. But 9 times out of 10, you will bootleg it on these other platforms and then wind up watching my content in clipped, edited forms for free on TikTok. So how do I protect myself? I kind of have to be everywhere. Logically speaking, like realistically speaking, I would have to have my hands everywhere. That's why you see big companies and corporations, they're commenting on like TikToks and threads and stuff like that have nothing to do with them. They're just staying relevant. Because eventually there would be somebody who would take their logo, make a fake little account, and then try to impersonate them.
Even builds in a discovery option by 2026 with a charting system. It will be the biggest D2C platform by 2030. I'm just saying it. I mean, we don't know the dynamics, but I feel that if they can do that with a charting system and they get enough content on the platform so that it makes sense to build in a discovery place so people can actually discover and not just go look for artists. Like they can see, okay, this is what's hot and what's trending on Even and what's not. Oh my God. Plus the community that Even already has built in, dude, it's over with. 2027, majors will emerge with D2C built in. By 2027, majors will create a D2C platform that supports the big 3, or they will partner with Apple Music to bring back catalog to this new selling format that the general public is now beginning to accept. Once majors do this, streaming 2.0 will become culture. So if majors get together and they put their systems together and say, hey, we missed out on the streaming era, let's not miss out on the D2C era. We might need to come together to make this happen. We will make a platform just for our artists. We will make it super, super special, and people will have to get our app, right? We're going to do things together, or they might do stuff separately, but I don't think that's the way to go. So they may do things together and come to even consensus on one D2C platform for major label artists. And in that position, it could be a deal with Apple. It may not be a deal with Apple. It might be quicker to make that happen with Apple because of what I said earlier about Apple already having infrastructure in place to take one-off payments. Spotify does not have that infrastructure in place to do that. That's why Spotify is not even in this discussion. So I feel that Apple can bring that back, and the labels may sit down to figure out a situation or a deal with Apple to make that work, okay?
Wow. So a lot of this is going to be interesting to figure out going forward. But I think, too, this kind of shows you what, at least in my opinion, the definition of a fan is going to look like. Like, I've come to realize, at least in college or whatever, that the way I'm going to identify a fan is almost like unmitigated loyalty. Because you're, again, the demand of the consumer has to have some sort of respect to that, of which is giving into the demand, right? So let's say if we remove it from music and we make it chicken. If we just keep demanding more chicken from the government, they're going to grow more chickens. They're just going to keep growing more chickens, making chickens bigger and stuff like that. But eventually the chicken, the genome and the existence of the chicken has to be respected at some point, right? The chicken being the artist in this equation. So if my fans have some kind of like undying loyalty to me, but they also are pushing me to be on 90 different platforms at the same time, then it begs the question if my fans are here for music. Because if I can make music and post it in one spot and they know where to get it, then there's no need to put my music in all these different places. But it seems like record labels aren't really thinking like that, because they're trying to either appease the demands of the consumers without respect to the artist, or they're trying to figure out how to appease the demands of the consumer with respects to the tech companies, because the tech companies are making all these different websites to service the relationships. They're not in it to say, oh, we're trying to pay artists more, like they were saying. They're actually in there to service artists being able to be direct to consumer business models. So again, now that I've said that, what do you think is different about your artists today going forward? Like, are you going to start to support them directly? Like, I want you to think about it this way. A lot of you will think, oh, my favorite artist's new album is coming out, let me stream it. But you could also literally just donate to them. You could literally buy something from them, right? It doesn't have to be just you're throwing money at them, but like you can actually give them a true tangible investment to people that you call friends and family and artists and stuff like that. But instead, for some reason, we choose to insert the tech company between us and the relationships of our favorite artists, and insert the relationships of the record labels and platforms we enjoy content on in between us and our favorite record and our favorite artists. I don't know why we do that, and I don't know what it is. For me, I don't really participate in most musicians. I wouldn't call myself a consumer outside of like I have an Apple Music thing. But for those of you who consider yourself like, I'm a fan of X, Y, and Z, are you really? If you're not investing in them, like we really got to have a conversation on what a fan is today and like what you guys actually call support. Because like we just said, if OnlyFans content creator decided they're just going to shift whatever they're doing, you can see how much anger and resentment they get from the audience, and it has really little to do with how much they love them. So let's move on to our last clip of the day, and this is actually going to be an interesting one. It's going to be talking about the statistics that we see in, I believe, the Pornhub, and we can kind of understand what it is that is attracting people to these certain things that, you know, more than likely would be considered sensual branding, but it actually puts like vocabulary to what it is that we're talking about.
If you don't believe me, just look at how online porn has proliferated since 2000. Okay, that is exactly men's innate mating strategy: unlimited access, unlimited sexuality, and on demand whenever you want. I'm sure you guys have probably talked about, you know, NoFap and you know, porn addictions and stuff like that. The reason for that is because our innate mating strategy is unlimited access to unlimited sexuality.
So for those of you who don't know what he's talking about and just heard like a bunch of just terms thrown at you really quick, the guy in the center on the bottom there is Rollo Tomasi, and he talks about a lot of different sexual dynamics between men and women. And one of the things he's highlighting here is that they're, at least in the context of what they're talking about dating. We're talking about being an artist or being a creator, an entertainer, but they're talking about in the context of dating, there's a certain demand that men have for sexuality. And it's shaped a certain way, right? It looks a certain way. So he was saying unlimited access, huge variety, and you know, it's on demand. Like I can just pull up my phone, right? So understanding that, how does a platform feed into that? How does the platform do that? The platform does it by servicing the ability for creators to provide content for those men, right? So if we use in context of what they're talking about dating, this would be women who want to take really, really sexy photos. That is something that they want to do. It has nothing to do with the platform or the men who want to see sexy photos. But where they post it is being serviced to men that want to see sexy photos, because the men who are on this same platform as the women posting photos want to see women in sexy photos. So as much as, you know, the disconnect between why they're on the platform is widening, it still shows you that the platform gets a benefit from facilitating this relationship. So now you have a situation where this random woman who's, you know, a cute lady in a dress is basically a content creator to an audience that has now built up over time because she's consistently posting all the time or constantly live or logging in. They've built a almost parasocial relationship to a stranger. Now, as I'm saying that, you're probably like, no, that's crazy. It sounds like a Black Mirror episode. It's just not true. Well, I'm saying that, but then when we look at what we'll be going through, I think the rest, either tomorrow or the next day, when we look at the crime statistics of what happens with these different social media sites, you'll see that even though it may not affect you, the reality of it is still there, right? So to give you a random hypothetical example that you could possibly find in your life, and I will try to use as most realistic points as possible. You could have a girl who posts online and has like 1,000 to 2,000 followers on, say, Instagram. All she does is she posts selfies. It could be selfies of her face, or maybe selfies at dinner, or selfies at family events, or whatever. If she does that once a day for 2 years, 3 years, she will have almost 1,000 photos, a little over like 13 to 1,500 photos to look at. So 1,300 photos are available on this platform that this platform now has to figure out how to push out to the public, right? So if your page isn't private, which I don't know why you would be on social media with a private page, if the page isn't private, it's being pushed on the algorithm, the explore page, and it's using AI metadata, if not some sort of structured algorithm, to look at what's in the photo. So if you're a light-skinned Latino woman with curly hair wearing a red dress and shoes, it puts you in a category. And all the photos that look like that are now in a category and then sent out to various algorithms on people's phones and things like that. If you don't know that, then the effects that could happen as far as the negative side of crime or the positive side of going viral can affect you. So on the positive side, you may get a lot of people saying, wow, you go girl, you're really cute. I love how you wore that dress. And then there's a bunch of dudes saying, wow, lady, you look really cute. I wish I had a girl like you. Can I date you? And sending you DMs, right? The positive side of that is happening. What can happen is now it changes how you feel about what you're making on Instagram or on OnlyFans or whatever it is. Now you feel some type of either attachment or relationship to the platform, not the people, because you don't know them. But if the people didn't do what they're doing, it wouldn't validate the platform, right? The negative side of it is you could do that and then people could shame you. You could see a bunch of women saying cover up. You see a bunch of dudes calling you slurs and calling you out your name and saying you're a hoe and all this stuff, right? That then changes how you view the platform. So now that we've seen the double-edged sword of what we're dealing with here, when you now consider what value that brings the platform, whether it's positive or negative, what are you willing to do with your content? Are you going to be the person that's going to say, I'm going to continue making this kind of content, and then I'm going to continue to ignore the negative sides of this, of, let's say, dudes calling you a whore, or a dude constantly stalking your page, or a dude thinking he's like your boyfriend, like he's constantly DMing you and liking your photos all the time. You have to deal with that, or you can walk away. Or do you decide to change your content to where that doesn't happen, or if it does, you are in complete control? Either way that you choose to go down, I've noticed that many artists really, really hate having to make that decision. So if I explain to them, which he might in this conversation, that if you have to change anything that you have to do on this platform, would you? And most people will say no. They will not stop doing what they're doing. Like if I tell you need to start scheduling your live stream times, or if I tell you need to start planning out your posts before you do them, like you can't just be like, I'm just going to just post and see what happens. A lot of people will be very, very resistant to that because it's not easy. It's not easy to then say, okay, I can't just post how I feel today. Or every time I post, it can't just be a funny meme because I saw a funny meme. Because the idea of you posting even memes on your profile page doesn't help you. It only helps meta. It only helps YouTube and things like that. Like, it doesn't help your brand. And if you don't have a brand, you would be considered a consumer of the creators who are on there developing brands. So I'm saying all this just so you understand it, so that way now you can make decisions, because a lot of people don't walk themselves through this logic, and if they do, they would stop at a point. They would be like, this is difficult, and just stop and just get back to scrolling on their phones. Which is why live streams like this will hit or miss. Like, there's going to be one person to watch this and they're gonna learn a lot. Then there's going to be most people who just get in and out and they just hear the keywords I'm saying and they're like, oh yeah, I know that one thing, and then they're going to walk off, right? So to fully digest what I'm saying, you now have to apply what I'm saying in order for you to truly understand what I'm saying, because I've applied a lot of what I'm saying. I've done pretty much things where you would be like, oh, okay, if I were to post content like this, what is the reaction I get? Oh, okay, that's the reaction I get. Let me see how I can control it. Oh, you guys got really, really mad at that? Okay, here's, like, you have to actually see that for yourself.
Simple as that. For women, it's different. It's not so much like quantity as much as it is quality. So they're looking for the guy, even when they're having casual sex, that guy still has to meet certain criteria. Got to be hot, got to be funny, got to, have some money, got to have, good muscles, money, and game. And then, got to love his mom, got to want kids, got to like puppy dogs, got to like Disneyland, whatever it is that's on down the bullet point checklist there. And I'm not saying you have to hit all of those, just some of them in priority order is pretty much where women's attraction is. Now, the other thing I also point out, and you're probably going to get to this at some point else, is going to be hypergamy, and that is women's innate mating strategy. It's short-term strategy versus long-term strategy.
So some people don't know what hypergamy is. It's a term that he's going to explain here in a moment, but it's one of those things that I was explaining when you're thinking about like adult entertainment. A lot of it, for some reason, when we talk about adult entertainment, we exclude the female fan, right? And the female audience member who likes adult entertainment usually has something a little different than what men usually like, right? Sometimes it's a little more emotionally charged, like really big, violent people, really big, loud, boisterous scenes and stuff like that. Like, usually women like stuff like that. That's why Chris Brown takes his shirt off. Like, if you were to think about the idea of a attractive male, and you were to compare Chris Brown taking his shirt off, gyrating in leather pants and neon shoes with baby oil, to Frank Sinatra in a suit singing on a stationary microphone, like, you would have a hard time trying to justify what women would find attractive, right? And so that's why he's laying out the hypergamy thing as far as what they're talking about dating. But when it comes to entertainment, it kind of works the same here, where it's very much more so the quality of what it is that women are attracted to than it is the, I guess you can say, amount of men on stage, or like, he's just so muscular, she just can't handle it, or he's so rich, she just, like, it's usually like he's rich plus, he's muscular plus, he's tall plus, like, there's a bunch of other things that go in there, right?
And I don't know if I can swear on here, but it's alpha seed. It's alpha flux and beta bucks. Okay. It's alpha seed and beta need. Short-term sexual benefits versus long-term security, provisioning, and parental investment benefits. And rarely do those two become optimized in the same man. So,
okay. So this is important. He's talking about this in dating, but if you were a male, or better yet, if you were the manager of a male singer today and you wanted to take the sensual branding approach for him, right? How much of what he just said is in consideration for your artist? Think about what he's saying right here.
Mating strategy. It's short-term strategy versus long-term strategy. And I don't know if I can swear on here, but it's alpha seed. It's alpha flux and beta bucks. Okay. It's alpha seed and beta need. Short-term sexual benefits versus long-term security, provisioning, and parental investment benefits. And rarely do those two become optimized in the same man.
So basically what he's saying is there's a guy that your girl, just because he's using women in general, so I'm going to say your girl, right? There's a guy or a version of men in her mind that supersedes logic. Like, it's just, this dude is just so hot, she'd break rules, she'd destroy a nation, she'd probably like burn a house down for him, right? But then there's another guy, or a version of a guy, let's say it's the same guy, but this version of this same guy, she can rely on. He's consistent. He's safe, but she also desires and has and maintains control over the relationship. Like, if he decides he wants to do something that she disagrees with, he has a say. Versus the other version of this guy, if he does something that disagrees with, she's just upset. Like, she just has to deal with the fact that he does something that she disagrees with, but she's not going anywhere, right? So as he's explaining this, right, you can do one or two things. You can say, that's not true. My girl would never. Or then you can say, well, I'm the guy she likes, right? I'm one of these versions that she likes. Well, what Rollo is trying to explain to you is that you can't have both in the same man. So if I was a manager of a male R&B artist that wanted to use sensual branding, how do we navigate this? If we know for a fact that, or if we not know for a fact, but if this is what we believe about our female audience, how do we navigate this? That you're either going to be the person that these women are going to break rules to see, visit, and support, or they're going to view you as a safe, comfortable bet, and they're going to consistently rely on you. Now, we can look at this in a relationship aspect, whichever you prefer your girl to do for you, right? But in terms of a brand, can you think of artists like this? Can you think of like an R&B singer where you think of in your head and you're like, oh yeah, he's safe, he's a teddy bear, he's cute? And then can you think of another R&B artist where you immediately want to ejaculate? Like, can you think of these two differences, right? What Rollo is pointing out is that you cannot have both. So if you're going to try to develop some kind of sensuality in your brand, you have to stand in either side. And what comes with either side is the good side and the dark side. So like I said, with the R&B singer, with the Usher or Chris Brown example, Chris Brown would be an example of the first version of the guy who's like really, really, really like just exciting. Like, for some reason, women just go crazy because he's shirtless, right? So the women would break rules. They would tell their boyfriend that they're going to a work show or work meeting instead, and then they go see a Chris Brown concert. This is the guy who they would act like she's not really texting him. She wouldn't tell him or explain to her boyfriend who Chris Brown actually is. She would just say, oh, that's Chris. We don't know nothing about Chris. Chris don't got no name. We don't know. She's known Chris longer than she's explained she knows him to you. That's what I'm saying. Like, he's the guy that does that to her, right? And so in her mind, she thinks that's fine. That's okay. But as Chris Brown, this is a valuable fan. So navigating that is important. The dark side of that is that you're basically dealing with a woman who's a liar. Your fan is technically a liar in that sense. And then also they're putting you in a predicament that you can't control. So there's that. Now, compare that to Frank Sinatra, who in theory would be the more stable, more stoic look as far as aesthetically, right? For men, more women would try to like be that for him, to be more stable, more consistent, because there would be no reason to, I guess, attach themselves so committedly to him. So I think that's what Rollo is explaining here. So either as a fan, you have to, or as a fan, as an artist, you have to know how to navigate this. But he's explaining it in the terms of dating. Just as a dude, you have to know how to navigate this.
The hot guy who is also, a good dad and also a good cad. He's the guy that other men want to be and other women want to bang. That guy is a rare animal, particularly in the 21st century right now. And it's gotten to the point where, at least as far as my work is concerned, that I believe that women don't even look for that combination in the same guy at the same time.
So now he's at least saying that women, again, if you're a dude hearing this and you're trying to be the sexy artist and stuff like that, he's suggesting that now women aren't even looking for that in the same character or the same guy, right? So you could try, this is what I think is wrong with Drake's branding. You can try to be both. You can try to be the safe guy, but then also the tough bad boy. And then women will be cringe at it because they're not looking for one guy to be all things anymore. Now, if you're a girl out there and you say you've got a guy in all things, then you might want to hang on to him tightly because clearly it's a rare thing and clearly a lot of women are looking for that. But the point here is that if you were an artist what does that look like? Like, what if you're trying to sensually brand yourself? What does this actually look like? Like, do you take your shirt off? Do you like do certain dances? Like, do you talk a certain way? Like, what is that, right? Because you can sit up here and say girls like this, girls like that, but you don't know until, like I said earlier, you actually apply it and see what works.
So when a woman's between 18 and 28 years old, she's looking for the hot guy in the foam cannon party in Cancun on spring break. And, you know, that's her hoe phase. So she's having the priorities might be, he's got to be really hot and he's got to be really good looking. I really want to, somebody that I really want to have sex with. Whereas,
so now think of what he said, 18 to 24-year-old female. He's talking about dating, but if we were to think about like how we relate to celebrities and artists and stuff like that, if an 18 to 24-year-old music fan was coming to your concert and you're using sensual branding, do you think it's because you look like a safe father figure to her children and consistently gonna pay for her bills, or do you think it's because you look hot to her?
when she gets the epiphany phase, right around 29, 30, 31 years old, still got to be hot, but maybe that's number two. And number one is like, he's got to have a good job, or he's got to have some potential to make partner in the law firm, or have some of what I've called the 3 Ps, which is protection, provisioning, and parental investment. And that's what makes for a good long-term partner. So a guy who's got his shit together, who has, has made the most of himself, has really kind of lived up to what I call the men's burden of performance. When men get to be about 35, 36 years old, that's when I peg them at their peak sexual market value.
So he's also highlighting too how, like, I guess female fans can possibly look at the safe bet. So now I want you to think about all the sensually branded male artists and entertainers and musicians out there that don't have the bad boy look. Now I want you to consider whether those men are in committed relationships already, or whether or not they're playing into that as like a caricature of themselves, right? Because there is this whole theme that, for some reason, I don't know where it came from. Honestly, I think it's just like a societal thing, but I think there's a theme where, like, if a married man is considered sexy by other women, he should reject all of that. He should turn that down. He should tone it down and things like that. They do the same for women. Like, if you're a married woman and you're super, super pretty and you're like, I guess the real thing is that if you're flaunting it, like if you're a man or a woman flaunting it, you should tone it down, right? So how do you navigate that if you are actually trying to utilize sensual branding, right? So what I've noticed is that the at least on the male side, dudes who try to use sensual branding on the safe consistency, I'm a teddy bear type of bet thing, they do this kind of like I love women type of thing, like, oh, I love my mama, my girl is so pretty, isn't she pretty, y'all? Look at how pretty she is. And they just do that over and 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 over again, to where women kind of feel like they can personify his principles in men like him. And then dudes like me will see that, and then I'll be like, so he don't like hoes or nothing? Like he don't see no other, like everything's hunky dory with him, right? And it's weird because it'd be like how women will see men attracted to women who are very nice, and they'll call them pick-me's, and they'll be like, wow, you really think like she's really attracted to you? No, she's playing into the feminist or feminism, not feminism, into the feminine role. Like she's just doubling down on her femininity to get your attention. Like they see through that, right? So we see through it when dudes do it, and they see through it when women do it.
Because that is when men have the most potential to have the most of what women are attracted to. So that's why I say that. So people always get that confused. When I say women's peak sexual market value years are 23 and men's is about 36, it's not that I'm saying 23-year-old women want to get with 36-year-old guys. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that at those particular points is when women and men have the most of what men want in a woman. And when it comes to fertility and youth and beauty and sex appeal, that is overwhelmingly the time when men are looking for that woman at 23 years old. You can look at the data sets from like Dataclysm. I don't know if you're familiar with that book, but there's all kinds of proof that shows this, all kinds of research. And again, am I saying this to make women feel bad? No, I'm not. people like women tend to conflate sex, like sexual market value, sex appeal with personal worth, with personal value. So for instance, Mother Teresa was a great woman. She should be a saint, right? Sexual market value wise, probably not the highest. Okay. So if you have a woman who is very, you know, sexy and vivacious, and if you look at like Hollywood starlets, their peak years are usually right in between 18 and 28 years old. And then from there, they kind of like get cycled out for the next crop that comes in.
So this is actually a reality for the women as female artists. You guys will have to navigate the modesty route, the sensuality route, and the just overall, you know, arcing societal views of women, right? So, like you said, Mother Teresa, great person, but not hot, right? So if she's trying to navigate getting the attention of people who are looking for hot on platforms that monetize hotness and then, you know, positively benefit people who are hot, it makes way more sense for the person who is super, super hot, but not as talented, or at least somebody we would like, to then take advantage of this, right? So that's something that women are going to have to navigate. And it's something that I think is really not really a responsibility of anybody else, simply because we all keep choosing to perform and participate on these platforms. Like if you have a .com and you're just not taking the sensual branding route, then yeah, that's fine. You're just taking the brunt of what comes with that. But if you're on something like YouTube, or you want to get on the Grammys, and you're confused as to why Sabrina Carpenter is doing like puppy dog baby porn on Netflix and stuff like that. Like if you're trying to figure out why she's doing that as a singer, then you really don't understand why she sees the value in doing it. Because she's not doing it because she probably believes in that stuff. Her management probably booked her to do that gig, and she's just going with it because she's the type of person to say yes to that kind of content. But because you're not, you have to compete with her.
That's just one. For men, on the other hand, men tend to have a much slower burn when it comes to their acting careers or being a celebrity. So there's lots of different ways, or lots of different correlations when I'm talking about, you know, sexual market value versus, you know, when men get it and when women get it. But what happens is women tend to conflate their sex appeal with their personal agency. And I've said this before, is that women's real inherent, only real actionable agency is their sex appeal. And so from there, whatever you do at that point, however you empower yourself, whatever your career is, whatever your business is, whatever your education is, that's personal worth. But when it comes to sexual market value, the things that men are looking for are different than the things that women are looking for in either sex.
And that's really the point of all this, is that there's two different things that both men and women are looking for. Men looking at women are looking at two different things. Men looking at men as far as entertainment are looking for two different things. And the same goes for women. Women are looking at women entertainers looking for two different things. And women looking at men entertainers looking for two different things. So what he means by like your sexual agency is your primary currency right now in the sexual marketplace is really, if we were to tie it to musicians, is that if you're not, we're gonna take attraction away, because attraction can be subjective, right? You can be attracted to dark-skinned girls with short hair or light-skinned girls with long hair. Who knows, right? So we're gonna remove that. But if you are a healthy, generally able-bodied, like if you're not missing an entire limb, we can be reasonable about this, right? You have that as leverage for everything else you want to do, but it's not valuable to your audience, right? You have to market everything else about you. And that's the part that women have to work through. Whereas dudes, we don't get the sexual part. Like, you're not going to look at me and be like, wow, he's so hot, let me see what he has to say. Like, that's not how you guys clicked on this live stream. That's not how you guys listen to my music or do anything that I offer you. So for women, it's more so, wow, she's so hot. What is she about? What is she doing? Is she twerking or is she talking? What is this? After that, you have to market whether or not what you're talking about is valuable to this person, because clearly they clicked on this just because you're pretty. Or you have to market to them that you are twerking and that's what they clicked here for, right? And you have to navigate that. So once you understand this, what do you then choose to do with your content? And this is why I implore people who were like gonna just live stream and just, you know, just be online all day. Like, I implore you to come up with a schedule and a plan on how this actually comes into some kind of tangible result. Like, if you do a live stream and you're not recording it, or if you do a concert and you're not recording it, then you have to figure out how to turn this into something. Like, it should be some kind of way you get phone numbers. Maybe you meet new people so that way they can get your phone number, join your email list. Maybe they're followers or something. You have to get some kind of metric out of this. Otherwise, the only person that's winning out of this is the platform that you're live streaming on. And you're going to act like you're winning because you're making, like, you know, a little bit of royalty money. But the point here is that it's not about the royalty money if all the time you have spent making royalty money has been leveraged out in mass exponentially by the middleman. If OnlyFans decides they're just going to up and, you know, sell a company, all this shit you're doing doesn't matter. If YouTube, Twitch, Rumble, Kick just up and decide they just want to just sell a company, all that data you gave them, plus all the other content creators that gave them data, is valuable to them, not you. So if you're not paying attention to that right now, as I'm explaining this, sensual branding is only going to exponentially speed this up as far as whatever it is you either are missing or whatever it is you're going to get. So if you're going to be a woman who's going to try to do the sensual branding, you better pay attention to what you plan on getting and have some sort of strategy. If you're going to do the sensual branding as a man, you better understand what it is you're getting yourself into, because the brand that you're risking is yours. You're not risking a YouTube channel. You're not risking a Twitch channel or a Patreon. You're risking your brand. Okay.
And maybe in both cases, maybe they could be viewed as being superficial in some ways. Maybe the woman is looking for security, and maybe that's in a financial way, and maybe somebody might view that as being superficial.
Gold
and
digger.
and yeah, and maybe a guy is looking for the girl to be hot. But I think
that's what's throwing off. That's what's throwing off a lot of guys right now, particularly in sort of like the conservative, traditional conservative, like Matt Walsh, for example, or like Andrew Clavin, or even Candace Owens, is that they tend to think of those things in terms of, well, this seems really superficial, but they can't get past the data that says women find most men unattractive. Women can't find what are called, you know, quote unquote, economically attractive men. And for men to be economically attractive, they have to make as much money as a woman plus 58% more. When we look at stuff, and this is not stuff that I'm just like pulling out of my ass here. You can find this on Google. In fact, it was a hot topic right around 2019, I think, and probably still is right now. And we talk about this crisis of masculinity, or this crisis of, well, what's happening to these men? How come they're not going to school? Like, women go to school 60% more, like they're enrolling in college 60% more than men are. It's 60-40 right now. And it is rapidly declining after that. So what does that do to a society, right? What is that?
So this is also the reason why you see a heightened usage of sensual branding. This this way to kind of add value to your social resume, I guess. So whereas if you were an artist, right, like you're saying, like you could just be the dude who raps. Like if you take myself for an example, let's say you took my YouTube channel, my Instagram, and it's just me in front of my tripod. It's a cool background and I'm in a cool environment and I'm just rapping music. It would not make sense, right? You guys would not support that. As much as you say you would hit like and scroll, you would hit share and scroll, right? As far as investing into the brand, it doesn't really give you any insight to who I am. You don't know what's going on with my life. You have no expectation of anything, right? You just kind of just hope I'm there the next day I post, right? But if you start to actually develop an attraction to me, like not even a sensual one, but just kind of like, I kind of want to see what's going on. I kind of need to see what's going on. Let me go pursue what it is that they're doing. It creates way more value for me as an artist, which means I no longer have to just sit in front of the camera. I now can like focus on bringing you direct value, which is why direct to consumer is so important now. But when we think about sensual branding, it's important to see how and why somebody would do that, right? So if I'm a person that is going to rely on sensual branding, let's say like pick like I'll use myself again. Like let's say if suddenly like I'm doing the rapping videos, but now I'm like changing the lighting to make it better and I'm like gyrating and shit like that, like doing all like sexy raps and stuff like that, it still wouldn't make sense, right? Because that's not what is attractive. So what he's explaining here is understanding the at least from his perspective, in the facts that he's laid out, the biological urges that help this sensual branding aspect, right? And this helps you understand how to shape your artist, how to shape your artwork and your projects and stuff like that. So when you see, let's say, like a Lizzo was trying to be very, very emotive in her music, very expressive, which then it detracted from everything because she didn't hit the sexual agency trigger point first, like he was saying. Just to use what he's saying. So if that was the case, then everything she tried to do after that has to now be caught up with the fact that we're looking at a woman that we find unattractive, right? Now, if we take somebody like, let's say, a Doechii, the dark-skinned girl that was rapping on the Somebody I Used to Know beat, because she's conventionally, traditionally attractive for a dark-skinned girl, if you're attracted to dark-skinned girls or whatever, we can really listen and dive into what she's doing now at that point easily because more people are attracted to it. Now, if you don't like that, right, if that is something you disagree with, then you would have to challenge yourself to then go listen to the opposite versions of this, right? A very bad singing light-skinned woman and then a very unattractive dark-skinned woman rapping well. You have to then challenge yourself to then go out of your way and support that. Because if then we then say either of these artists are unsuccessful, we would be delusional because Lizzo's talent superseded what we would call a conventional attraction trigger point. Doechii utilized both. So now if we're going to try to say that they don't understand what's happening after seeing the results, then I would call that a failure in learning because we would now see what we're talking about. That an attractive girl that raps really well does just as successful as a conventionally unattractive girl who is very musically talented. But you can also see how the boost can be even higher if you were attractive and talented, right? But the key thing here is that attraction is one of the key points here, is one of the main things to focus on. As for guys, it's not the same. It's almost flipped. So like you'll see somebody like a Method Man today. Women want to swear up and down he's like so cute and so sexy and stuff like that. But then if you look at him aesthetically, he's just a regular guy, right? Regular guy in the sense of he don't got no like crazy look. He's not wearing weird clothes. He's not dancing and gyrating on the floor in baby oil. He's just a regular looking dude, right? He just do regular shit. But then when you look at his skill set, he's highly talented. Which came first? Did he have to be highly talented and then attractive, or was he attractive and then talented? It basically flipped for him. When Method Man was in Wu-Tang, him and his friends, by the world's standards, were dusty rappers, okay? When they started to clean themselves up, and they'll speak for themselves, when they started to get money and actually investing in themselves and their business models, then the attractive things started to kick in. And that is what Rolo's talking about as far as like, oh, we see that you can maintain money. Oh, we see that possibly you can maintain relationships. Oh, we see you can maintain your health and stuff like that. Things like that make you more attractive to the female audience as a man. Maintaining your health was not as important to women when they were watching Lizzo. Maintaining your health was not as important to women when they were watching Doechii. Maintaining your talent was extremely important when women were watching Lizzo. Maintaining your talent was extremely important when they watched Doechii. When women watched Method Man, maintaining your talent didn't play as much as a role until he started to look attractive. So if you flip it to men, for Lizzo, the attraction thing mattered. When you look for Doechii, the attraction thing mattered. Both of them highly talented, so clearly that mattered as well, but it still benefited them. It wasn't a detractor, right? When it comes to Method Man, when men listened to Method Man's music, it didn't matter how attractive he was or how cool he looked or whatever it was. It was more so the skill set. So now that we've laid that out for music, juxtapose that to what Rolo's talking about in terms of just dating and having normal relationships. Can you see how you can utilize this information for yourself as an artist when you get on stage?
What's that going to do to business prospects? What's that going to do to like sales? What's that going to do to political involvement? What's that going to, so like when I talk about the red pill, it's not just about getting laid, like you guys were saying before. Yeah, that's definitely a part of it, but it's so much bigger than all of that.
And, you know, one thing you mentioned really interesting about online dating is the amount of men who are still virgins by the age of, I've heard you mention by the age of 29 or 30. That's gone up what amount?
31%. Yes.
31%.
That is, So the original data set for that was the general survey study, and I think it was from 2019. And there might have updated it since then, but the most recent articles that I've read is that 31% of men below the age of 30 are sexless. They're either virgins or they have not had sex within the last, like, say, 10 years, I think. Something like that, since they started keeping track of this. Now, if you take that and you look at that and compare that against, like, say, college enrollment rates, where you see men declining in college enrollment rates while sexlessness is going up, what can we infer from those correlates? What can we, like, at that point, it's like women are still having the same amount of sex or more sex, but men are having less, while at the same time their education level or their enrollment in college is going down. So what is that pointing out, at least to me anyways, the dots that I'm connecting here, is that women have a vested interest in men's economics future. Whether or not they really care about that guy is another, another animal to look at. But the fact remains is that women are interested in their long-term interests, and men play a part in that. As much as women want to say, I'm strong and independent, and repeat all the stuff from Gloria Steinem and Betty Friedan from the 70s, they are still, they don't need a man, but they want a man. And when they can provide, protect, and have the parental investment side of hypergamy already taken care of, either by themselves or by the social order that is supporting them, the type of men they want is not those guys. It's not.
So this is actually a good circle around into why OnlyFans and all that stuff was so successful. Because a lot of the things that they were showing was that you could use your sensual branding to actually develop a business model. And so what then happened was that the idea of a sensual artist changed, right? So now when you had a singer who just had a deep V cut in her dress and you just got to see, like, cleavage, that would be like, wow, this woman who's really, really pretty can sing really well. But now the singers and the rappers that are female now, they're wearing wrestling outfits and they just literally do strip teases on stage. It's almost like no difference between, like, a stripper rapper, right? And so what this has created is this kind of, like, relationship between the artists that feels like the women are empowering themselves through the sexuality, but in actuality they're just kind of, like, commodifying their sexuality to circumvent having a musical skill set. Men do it too. Men do it in tomorrow's episode a little bit more, but in terms of what we're talking about today, men do it in the way of, like I said, I got your girl, or I took your girl. So many girls like me because I'm just so rich and stuff like that. Like, they do it that way, right? But this is all very, 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 very controversial. Some of you probably think avoiding sensual branding completely is the way to go, but there is some ways that sensual branding does bleed into everyday mainstream media. You'll see it in your favorite sitcoms and family shows. Disney even does it, where you'll see, very sexy moms or very, cuckoldy type of dads. It's like, it's all there. Like, you'll see it there. You'll see a lot of intimacy between characters on TV and stuff like that. It's all there. So it's not like you're hiding from it, and it's not like you're trying to avoid it. You have to be intentional about it. That's really what it is. So we'll wrap things up. I'll let you guys go so you can get ready for lunch and all that stuff and get your day started. Stop being a lazy bum. We will see you guys tomorrow, same time. This was Musician Talks with DameSmiff. We discussed a lot of different things, the good side and the bad side of adult entertainment and what we would call, quote unquote, sensual branding. But I will see you guys next time. I am out. Peace.